Blog Talk Radio.
There's a direct relationship between having the businesses and being in prison. Go find see how many Asians you can find in American prisons. They ain't gonna be in there. But 51% of your prisoners will be black because blacks don't have any businesses and industries. There's a direct link. Blacks won't practice group economics. Blacks won't practice group politics. If you don't practice, you're setting yourself up. I told that 5-story building, you're setting yourself to get wiped out. Understand the nature of race, which is economics. If you build the first floor, it's economic. Build your businesses and your industries. Control business and industry, and put that pulls in your money, and hold that money, and practice group economics with it. Arab and Asian money bounces 12 to 13 times what it leaves. Jewish money bounces 18 times. Black folk got to learn how to practice group economics. Black Americans spend every penny they get outside their own community. Then you take the money and the wealth that you get from that first floor and go to the second floor. The second floor is politics. You then take that money on the first floor and you control your politics. Black folk must quit allowing people to tell them to go out and vote. Vote for what? Nobody's going to do anything for black folk in politics. Politics is controlled by money. Major corporations who got the money. That's what controls politics. If you have no money, you have no say-so, you have no benefits coming. So you take your money and you control, and you take your money on the first floor, you buy every politician on the second floor. And any politician you can't buy, you rent or lease them to get what you need. Then once you get the second floor under control with the politician, with your money, then you go to the third floor. The third floor is the police department and the court system. You take your money from the first floor and your politics on the second floor, and you control the court system and the police departments. Then the fourth floor then is media. You then take the money that you generate off the first floor from business and industries, and you go after radio stations, TV stations, newspapers, and cable systems, so that you can now inform and communicate with your own people. Right now, black folk own and control less than 35 thousandths of 1% of the media in the United States. Out of 12,000 radio stations, black folk own about 75, 80. That's all. You own no cable systems. You don't have a daily newspaper. You have nothing of importance. You got about one black TV station. And so you can't communicate with your people. You can't inform your people. You can't do anything. You can have Rush Limbaugh and all the rest of the guys talking about racism all day long and bad-mouthing you, and O'Reilly. They can call black folk all kind of names all day long. What are you going to do? You can't respond. You can't communicate with your own people because you don't have an economic base. 51% of all the prisoners in the United States are black people. You only make up 12% of the population. That's no accident. It's because you don't control the economics and the politics. And they're going to go after the weakest people they can get their hands on to incarcerate. That's the black folk. And what are you going to do in response to it when they over-incarcerate you? You're going to go out and have a march, a demonstration. We're going to march. March for what? Who cares? Marching, they never changed anything.
Now learn this from Joel Osteen. That's my man. He be texting me. That's my man. God done put some people around me, show me some stuff. He was telling this story. He said this man that went to heaven, he was walking with Peter down this aisleway, and it was going down this corridor, had a lot of doors on it, and said all these doors had names on it. And he said, Peter, let me ask you something. What's all these doors, these names on? He said, don't worry about it, just go ahead. So he kept walking. And he messed around, he saw one of them doors and had his name on it. He said, whoa. He said, hey, Peter, this here ain't got my name on it. Something I need to know? He said, man, don't worry about that. You here now. Just go on in there and talk to him, see what he said, no, I want to know what's in the door. He said, you sure you want to see what's in the door? He said, yeah. So he opened up the door. It was a warehouse. It had numbered shelves on it. And in the shelves had none but packages. And all the packages had his name on them. And he said, what is all these boxes? He said, that's all of the blessings, all of the things God wanted to ship to you. But number one, you didn't ask him for it. Then number two, you didn't believe you would have it. Then you doubted him. And then you felt like you wasn't worthy. And so now all these boxes is uphill. Now the man standing there wishing he had never even been in the room. And I started thinking. I got some dudes that work for me. And I said, I want you to do this graph for me. And that's what I'm finna show you now. See, what happening is when God sends your package, he only sends it to one street. That's Faith Street. You got to stay in faith. You can't move off of Faith Street. You can't get on Doubted Drive. You can't be over there and start doubting it because your package going to go right on by. You can't lose your faith and get on not meant to be way because your package is going to keep going right on by. Because the package just go to Faith Street. You can get your little feelings hurt, I ain't worthy. Guess what? Your package going to keep going right on by. You have not because you ask not. Then you sit up here and start feeling sorry for yourself. You go over on pity way, your package keep going right on by. If you stay right on Faith Street, don't ever come off because the blessing is coming. If you wait on it, here it comes. It may not come when you want it, but it's on time. But if you get up and you move off of Faith Street, your box gonna get sent back to sender. And now you're gonna have a warehouse with a bunch of boxes with your name on it that you didn't never get. And I don't know about you, but I want everything he got for me. If he got something for me, I need all of mine. Because I don't know about you, but God lay you out, man. God will give you stuff. Man, he done took me places I ain't never thought I was going to go. I done seen parts of the world I never even thought I could go to. He done gave me stuff. He done put people in my life. God will do it for you, man. But you just got to stay, man. Use these principles of success. Understand, God is just that way. He'll lay you out. Because if he can lay me out, see, if he fix me and change me and get me over here trying to do better, I ain't perfect. I'm just trying to do better. I still say some stuff I ain't supposed to say. You understand? I ain't got it all together yet. I just got in the gate. I'm a new kind of Christian, but ain't no lock on my gate either. So if you see, once you check me, I'm probably going to check you back. But I'm getting better at that. I don't know how to love my enemies yet. I'm getting better at it, though. But it's a process. And the more times we can make people understand that it's a process, the more people can come in. And y'all people that have been good to me, that have been praying for me. I mean, man, my mama, if she could see me now, I just wish my mama could see me. Because she been praying for this here all her life. Watch my son. Well, he done watched me, mama. And I'm cool now. And my philosophy is very simple. I was who I was, but I am who I am. And I'm cool with both them people. Because who I was wasn't that bad cat. I made some mistakes, but I've been changed a little bit, and it's still a process. And the more people that you invite into the process, the better this is. Because ain't nobody perfect no how. So I really appreciate y'all, man, hearing me and listening to me. I'm going to ask Kirk Franklin.
Friends, it is time once again for our daily message of hope. And with today's message, here is Richard Eaton.
Friends, to brighten your day, here is our message of hope. Afraid of change? You can't do anything about it. Change is inevitable. Growth is the great fundamental principle, the function of our lives. The seed in the ground will rot if it does not sprout and grow. And so will our minds and souls and bodies. Without conscious action and striving, our Creator answers most prayers in the terms of ideas for action. He doesn't give us something for nothing. He expects us to use what He gives us in active exercise of a freedom which He permits our minds and souls to exercise in reactions to the life patterns of ups and downs, strange events, curious, unforeseen happenings. Human consistencies all can be changed according to the way our mind evolves, adapts, and grows. Nothing in this world is so inevitable, nor hardly so obvious. The fact is, everything does change. So often we'd like things to remain the same. It'd be so comfortable, nice. We get used to things. We adapt ourselves to a certain pattern, and then suddenly, without any warning, it changes. What are you going to do about it? Well, the first step in gaining a happier and more satisfying state of mind is recognition of the significance of this fact. Everything changes. Everything in life is changing as you and I are changing. And we must do more than this to take proper advantage of the ceaseless change inevitable in our lives. We must consciously react to direct actions that change in the paths of improvement, in the growth of our mind and soul. Change alone is inevitable and constant. But change alone is not growth. It is not progress. We have to do the progress ourselves. We have to convert. We have to adapt. Growth is a cornerstone, the primary marvel of our earthly lives. Our Creator has provided for physical growth in a pattern in which He has given us only limited powers to alter. From babyhood, we go to childhood. From childhood to adolescence. From adolescence to adulthood. And so the story grows. Physical growth. But the way we adapt ourselves to prepare ourselves for those unusual situations, the ones which we can call pleasant or unpleasant, that depends on the way we grow in our minds, the way we grow in the power of adaptation. For friends, life is a constant adaptation. Every phase of life presents a spectacle of change, and as a consequence, the spectacle of retrogression, a standstill status or progress of growth. In each case of progress or growth, there is a constant overcoming, a vanquishment of the obstacles met in the Creator's pattern of constant change. See, that's all important. All about us, we see growth or deterioration taking place in grass, in flowers, in vegetables, in pets, in our children, in our own body. But the thing that's important is the way we adapt ourselves to this change. That's all important. In our affairs, all too often, we select for cultivation the very things we don't want. Courses that lead to mistakes and trouble, sorrow and pain. Then we carefully endow these selections with the full energy of our thoughts and words. We water them with tears and self-pity. Give them the concentration of undivided attention. And then we have a way of wondering why, indeed of all our efforts, we grow in a crop of trouble and discord. Let me tell you, it is not necessary. Let us deliberately refuse to turn our thoughts to those weeds we do not want. We must discipline our minds to concentrate on the good, on positive thoughts, the sunshine and water and soil that produce good in our lives, on the thought energy, the emotional powers we concentrate on our affairs to convert inevitable change into growth. In other words, our job every single day, and this day too, is to watch where we're going, what we're doing. If we want love and happiness, be sure it's to love and happiness that you devote your attention, not to discord and bitterness and resentment. If you want success in some field, give full recognition. Yes, give full recognition to success, and it's yours already. Think positive thoughts. Fix the life-giving force of your attentions and assurance and faith on the good you already have. Look for it in every circumstance. Now, make no mistake about it, change is inevitable. You can't halt the process of change any more than you can keep your child a baby. In the words of Dr. Arthur H. Compton, everywhere the conditions of life are changing rapidly, and these changes are all in the direction of greater interdependence. That is, making better cooperation of paramount importance. The point is, that in this process of change, we go forward or we go backward. We bow to circumstances or we rise above circumstances. Of course, we cannot be expected to see beyond the point of our understanding any more than we can see beyond the horizon limit of our eyes. But the point is, we can master the thoughts we permit to remain in our minds. We can choose our thoughts according to God's laws. We know we get out of life exactly what we put into it. Nothing more, nothing less. We know if we sow love, we shall reap love. We sow hate, we reap hate. We have the power to concentrate on whatever kind of thoughts we choose. We know that if we endeavor to have an understanding heart, we shall find elsewhere an understanding heart. We know if we pardon, we shall be pardoned. We know if we give, we shall receive. Look at your own picture, 5, 10, or 20 years ago. See what a change has been made on the outside, in the outside person. You will scarcely know yourself. Well, that's the growth of the body. But God has given you the mastery of your mind. Your soul can keep pace with the growth of the body. Just as the less perceptible growth of the trunk of the tree matches the more visible enlargement of its limbs. Look back at what you were thinking 5, 10, or 20 years ago, at the obstacles which seemed insurmountable then, at the joys and sorrows of yesterday. And just as it's hard to believe, those old photographs are you. Yes, we really looked as we did, not as we see ourselves in the mirror today. So it is equally difficult to imagine the progress, the maturity that our soul has accomplished and made in the course of these years. In other words, we do not change without more than we change within. This is all important to know. There is no limit to the transformation which can take place in your mind. When we dig a little deeper in our search for answers to life's questions, when we wisely read between the lines, we find that God puts His blessings upon our efforts and draws us close, imparts to us His divine wisdom. We find, first of all, that our soul, our mind, gains maturity as we react in a positive manner to the pattern of life, no matter how unpleasant or unexpected. A pattern which we may not be able to change except in our minds. But remember, that's all important in our mind, because what actually counts is what we think, the way we feel about something. The growth of the soul, therefore, depends upon our free reaction to the problems with which we are faced. Our life is part of a divine plan, carefully prepared in every detail. Each moment of that plan offers a marvelous opportunity for our adaptation, for the growth of our soul and of our mind. The whole picture of our lives is so much brighter than the small pieces that hold and which our minds are prone to dwell on at length. Isolated from the background of all this, the whole, some parts, may look awfully black. But let me tell you, our Creator, in time, ultimately moves in on our subconscious mind and plays a pleasant trick on all of us. The unpleasant experiences of the past are relegated to the past. When we realize the power of our mind, the real secret escapes us, as long as we fail to exercise that freedom of choice, all important, endowed to us by our Creator. This mystery of growth functions in time of crises more than ever before. We say, why does this happen to me? How could this happen to me? I don't deserve this. Suppose we say, this is an opportunity, a challenge to react and gain greater maturity. Life, with its steady, compelling urge to grow, means that any door may open to us at any moment. Life makes us beneficiary of the physical experiences that the ages have bequeathed to us, of the signs and inventions of genius, of the mental and physical work of our forefathers that set us free to seek the larger spiritual things of life. Friends, let us profit by these examples of the past, by physical knowledge, to prepare ourselves better for the experiences of life. Yes, we can encounter experiences of all kinds along life's highway, good and bad, pleasant and unpleasant. We can prepare ourselves for many trials simply through the richness of knowledge of those who lived before us. But along that same highway, each of us is certain to meet some experiences so different from those for which we are prepared and so unexpected. But the point is, are they going to catch us unprepared and unaware? Each of us on life's journey must face a great many such surprising and disconcerting experiences that happen every day, any minute, and take us unprepared, unaware. The knowledge that somehow or other we have inside of us the strength, the power, and mastery of our mind to control every situation, to react, and so to change in our mind our feelings about any problem and situation is all important. What a wonderful privilege is ours to be a human being, to know that we endow with the mastery of our mind, that we can control through our reactions whatever is our fate. No, we may not control circumstances or situations, but we can control our life because we control that which we feel about life. What a wonderful challenge it is. Friends, you've been listening once again to our message of hope. God bless you.
Many a young athlete entertains hoop dreams. Few, if any, have tried as hard to make them come true as the kid our Steve Hartman has gone to see.
Every week, he set himself up for disappointment. Every week, 13-year-old Jamarian Stiles came to this community center in Boca Raton, Florida, hoping to play basketball with the other kids. And every week, he was rejected.
They'll start picking teams, and I would be the only one left out. And then they'll just tell me, just go home and stuff. You can break someone's heart like that.
The problem was obvious to everyone but Jamarian. He lost his hands and most of his arms as an infant due to a rare bacterial infection. But he insisted that was no reason to give up his hoop dreams.
What about soccer? Have you heard of that sport?
Yeah, hear it every day.
Why don't you play soccer? That just seems like the obvious thing.
You would think that I would be good at soccer. I'm really not. I'm horrible.
Which is why, on the first day of class here at Eagles Landing Middle School, Jamarian took his case to basketball coach Darian Williams. Said he wanted to be on the team this year.
I said, oh, great, well, just make sure you try out.
You say, okay, great, but what are you really thinking?
This man has no arms.
Yeah.
How is he going to play basketball? But, man, he told me, Mr. Williams, I've never been on a team before. Even if I don't play, I just want to be on the team. And how could I say no to that?
And that's how the Eagles got their first armless basketball player. Jamarian, number 2 there, quickly earned a reputation as the hardest worker on the squad.
He was usually the first one in the gym, usually the last one to leave.
Still, he sat on the bench most of the season.
Try one more.
Until last month. Coach put him in the game with about 6 minutes left. And when he eventually got the ball on the far side of the court, everyone yelled, "Shoot it!" So he did. And sank a 3-pointer. And if you didn't quite see that, don't worry, because shortly after he got the ball again, this time on the near side, for another 3-pointer. At the buzzer. Jamarian Stiles, the kid no one would pick, was now everyone's hero. Needless to say, today, Jamarian can play all he wants at the community center. He just made the volleyball team and has every intention of playing football next year. Really, the only thing he won't play is the victim.
If I could wave a magic wand right now and give you your arms back, would you want them?
I don't need them.
You don't need them?
No.
Who needs hands when you've got this kind of touch?
Hi everybody, I'm Jonathan Fields and this is Good Life Project. So my guest today is Josh Kaufman, and this is a special episode. One of the things that we've discovered through a lot of our viewers is that the process of trying to live a good life, a better life, often requires you learning a new set of skills. We've had a ton of questions over the last year from people who say, I would love to do this, but I don't have time in my life to do it. I don't want to wait forever to make it happen. So we're bringing you Josh, who's also the author of a book called The First 20 Hours, who's an expert in, I guess, what I would call accelerated learning. So great to be hanging out with you today.
Thanks for having me. Great to hang out.
Couldn't sort of like have asked for a better person to drop in at a better time, because it really is. It's an interesting thing. It seems like the world is moving faster. Mm-hmm. We all want to get stuff done. A lot of people want to make big changes and feel like they're living better lives, but they look out there and they're like, there's stuff that I need to know, stuff I need to learn, stuff I need to master to do it, and I just don't have time in the day to do it.
Right.
So I'm curious. I mean, I want to get like right in with you, sort of like the idea behind your book.
Sure.
But one quick question first, which is, what was the motivation for you to actually go down this rabbit hole?
Yeah, so two primary motivations. The first is, in terms of the research and the writing that I do, I like to look at topics that are like fundamental human experiences, like things that everybody needs to know or everybody deals with in some way, shape, or form. And those things can be big and complex and scary and frustrating in a lot of ways. But if you just dive in and break it down, what you often find is it's not really as hard as it feels. And so part of the motivation was, learning is something, learning new skills is a fundamental part of what it is to be human. And so let's figure out how to do that. Let's figure out how to do it better.
And most people, for most people, the thought of, for me, the thought of learning new stuff, I'm giddy. I love it. But for a lot of people,
it's terrifying. Right. Particularly if it's something would be super fun or super valuable, but you know nothing about it, and you just look at it like, oh my gosh, this is really big. The motivation for me personally was, I run my own business. My wife Kelsey runs her own business. And 2.5 years ago, our daughter Leela came into the world, and all of a sudden we had zero free time. And so, I, just like you, I really geek out about this stuff. I have a list of things that I want to learn a mile long. And so, not having any time, it's like, okay, I may only be able to set aside, half an hour, 45 minutes a day. So if that's all I have, then, let's figure out how to learn as quickly as possible in that short period.
And at the same time, you don't want to wait forever to get results. A lot of people are like, okay, I could figure out, I could scrap somehow to find that half an hour a day. But does doing it so little mean that it's going to take me 10 years to actually be decent enough at it so it'll actually be fun?
Right. And what I found through my research is that totally not the case. It doesn't take very long. Yeah. Even if you know absolutely nothing, or you only have a certain amount of time every day to sit down and learn it, you can become very, very good at something in a very short period of time. I think that's fun.
So, but this flies in the face to a certain extent also in what has commonly become known as the 10,000 hour rule.
Sure, a little bit. It's actually a lot more complimentary than it seem at the surface. So the whole idea of the 10,000 hour rule came from research by K. Anders Ericsson, Florida State University. And the idea behind that was, if you look at the people in ultra-competitive, easily ranked fields, professional golfers, musicians, all of these folks where you can get an estimate of who really is the best in the world on an objective level.
Right.
The question that Dr. Ericsson was researching is, what does it take to get to that level on some very narrow thing? Yeah. So if you want to step on a golf course and compete with Tiger Woods, that's about the amount of time it's going to take you to get there. But the vast majority of us, that's not the goal. That's not what we're trying to do. We just may have something in our minds that we want to accomplish, or an area of life we want to explore, and it takes a lot less time to get what we want out of something.
And I guess for a lot of people, the motivation is probably one of two things. You want to get good enough so you enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
Or maybe professionally, you want to develop a skill set enough so that you can actually start to leverage it to either build your career or change your career for a lot of people.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of things that you can learn that can help you do better in your business. There are a bunch of things that you can do to do for fun. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it, because you kind of have a methodology that you developed. So take us through I guess it's 5 sort of core ideas.
Yeah, okay. So the first step in this process, and this is something that applies to every skill. Could be a motor skill like learning how to fly an airplane or skateboard or something like that. Could be a cognitive skill like language or programming or something. So the first step is deciding exactly what it is you want. right? Why are you jazzed about this thing in the first place? If you're able to really clearly define what it is you're trying to get, it's called setting a target performance level. The more clearly that level of performance, or the more clearly you can define that, the easier it is for you to look out into the world and find ways to get there in the most direct way possible. Right?
So, like, what's an example of that?
So, for example, for me, I learned a lot of things in the process of putting together this book. And one of the things that I wanted to be able to do was program. And so instead of just saying, I want to be a programmer, right? Doesn't give you any information whatsoever.
So amorphous.
It's here is this idea of a program that I would like to sit down and create from nothing. And it looks like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. When I make this thing, I'll have developed the skills that are necessary in order to get the particular result, right?
Got it.
So instead of learning everything in the world about programming, I decided this is the subsegment of that skill I'm interested in learning first, so that's what I'm going to focus on first.
So it has to be like very goal-oriented and also very specific.
Yes. So what is it going to look like when you're done? What are you going to be able to see or experience that'll let you know you reached the level that
Okay, so like if you want to learn a language, is I want to speak French enough, or is it
not enough?
So like, what would that look like in your sort of like framework?
So let's say, for example, I want to go to a restaurant that has a French-speaking waiter, and I want to order and conduct the entire meal in this language and have a good time doing it. That's something that's specific enough to practice.
Got it. Okay.
So you almost make it too specific at the beginning, because once you get to that level, you can always ratchet up the stakes, right? You reach that threshold, practice something else.
I mean, what I found is once you get just like the most baseline proficiency in something, it sucks less.
Yes.
And now you actually, like that baseline level, it creates a whole new level of motivation to want to learn more, because now you've kind of gotten through like the scales in music or something like that.
Yeah, and it's important to understand that the first couple hours of practicing something new are frustrating.
Yeah.
For everyone. Everybody's terrible at the beginning. And so, if you can push through those early few hours, the practice itself becomes fun, and it becomes way easier to continue to improve.
So, okay, so that's number one.
Yes.
Number two.
Okay, so after you decide what you want, you do what's called deconstructing the skill. And the idea behind that is a lot of the things that we think of as skills, like, for example, playing golf or speaking French or learning how to program, those aren't exactly skills. They're really kind of general topics that contain lots of smaller sub-skills.
Right.
So it's really hard to practice being a good golfer. It's way easier to practice hitting off of the tee with a driver. Right? So you take the global skill and you break it up into much smaller parts. And if you're clear about what you want, it becomes very easy to find what are those sub-skills, what are the smaller parts that are actually going to help you get to that target performance level as quickly as possible.
So like if there are 100 sub-skills, if you've done number one, it makes it much easier to figure out, okay, what are the 15 of those sub-skills that are going to give me 80% of the results towards getting where I want to go.
And what you often find is it's only maybe 2 or 3 sub-skills that you use most of the time.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's just, breaking it down into small enough chunks. If you do just a little bit of research, which is actually step 3, right? You go out into the world and you find sources of information that help you do this deconstruction. If you look at, say, for example, pick up 5 books on whatever it is that you're trying to learn how to do. And don't read them cover to cover. Skim all of them, one right after the other.
Right.
And what you'll see is the 2 or 3 sub-skills that you're going to use most of the time are the ones that come up over and over again. Right? So you just practice those first. And if you spend your time practicing those things and avoid a lot of the distractions or things that aren't going to help you, you save a lot of time and energy as you're practicing.
So that's a big question, so I'll ask you now. If out of a whole basket of potential sub-skills that add up to this thing that you want to accomplish, only a small handful are very often really, really critical, why are we taught to do them all at once?
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that, actually. I think the biggest thing is we treat, in our culture now, learning as a very academic exercise. Like the objective is to suck in a ton of information about this thing, whether or not you're going to use it. And I think, education in our culture now has been seen in the academic sense and less in the sense of practicing something with the eye of using it to do some particular cool thing.
So it's less applied.
Yeah.
More
So, the whole idea of researching the topic, and something that I had to train myself out of, is I love doing research, right? So the first thing, programming was a good example of this for me. It's like, I want to learn how to program. I get 10 books, and I have these courses, and I'm going to go through all of this stuff, and then I'm going to sit down and write a program. It's like, no. You use the research, do just enough research to help you do the deconstruction and find the most important sub-skills first, and then get out of research mode and into practice mode as quickly as you can.
Because that's where the real stuff's going to happen.
And when you start practicing what it is you're actually trying to do, that's when you see the performance improvement.
Now, you also made a differentiation when we started the conversation between cognitive skills, like learning a language, and did you use motor skills? Motor skills, like swinging a bat or playing golf. Do all of these steps, we still have 2 more to work through, but with the 3 that we've covered so far, are they all sort of equally relevant to both types of learning?
Yeah, so for both types of learning, you have to go through the same general process. Some of the actual practice techniques can be different. So for example, one of the things that you can do when you're practicing a motor skill, which works really well, is practice it within a couple hours of going to sleep. Either taking a nap or going to bed for the night. There's a lot of research around the idea of what's called consolidation. So your brain translates the practice and experience you had and encodes neural connections to help you do it better. That practice or that process is way more efficient if you practice within about 4 hours of going to sleep. So in the process of writing the first 20 hours, I retaught myself how to touch type on a different keyboard, which is like having the experience of rewiring my brain to do something differently. And then fun things like playing the ukulele, which is all motor skills, and it's surreal experience. I would practice it right before I would go to bed. And the first couple hours of practice was just terrible. So I would practice, I'd go to bed, I'd pick it up first thing in the morning just to see. And it was like astounding how much better I was after a couple hours sleep.
That's amazing.
Because sleep helps consolidate that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
So some of the actual practice techniques are different, but the general process is the same.
So that's pretty remarkable. You literally wake up in the morning and you're better than you were when you went to sleep just because you slept in the middle of it.
Absolutely. So so for
like noticeably better, like really?
Noticeably better. Like one of the in the process of learning typing, once I switched keyboard formats, I went from typing about as fast as I could think to literally 5 words per minute, terrible. And so practicing right before bed and getting up in the morning and trying to use my computer, in the first couple of days I was doing it, was like, oh my gosh, I can actually type now. I can do something.
That's crazy.
So that type of thing works for a motor skill. For cognitive skills, memorization techniques like spaced repetition reinforcement, like flashcard model or flashcards with feedback helping you remember things works really well. The actual practice techniques can be very different, but the core method of learning is very much the same.
And again, for both of them, before you go to bed, helps with the consolidation.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. What about simulated practice?
Simulated practice can be effective as long as it is as close to real-world performance as you can make it. A lot of the trying to memorize something and then having that translate directly into practice doesn't really work.
I guess I'm thinking more in terms of motor skills. When I was a gymnast when I was a kid, we would before any event, I would basically, before I would step up to a piece of apparatus, I would kind of close my eyes and I would actually envision my body moving through the entire thing. And then there was all this research that said that it triggers all the same motor neurons that would be trigger the same response in your brain as if you were actually doing it. But I'm curious in terms of sort of accelerated learning, whether that would actually make you progress faster and towards a high level of proficiency in that skill.
There is quite a bit of research that says that imaginary types of practice does work, and it works well, with a catch, which is you have to do it in addition to
the
physical practice.
Right.
So if you're starting to consolidate those motor movements and you're doing that in practice, and then you're reinforcing that with imagined practice, awesome.
Got it.
But what I found is a lot of people get caught up in the process of just doing the physical practice first.
So we got to 3 of the 5 steps now. So let's kind of like close the loop here. So step number 4.
Okay. Step number 4 is removing barriers to practice. So things that are preventing you from actually sitting down and doing the work.
Okay.
Sometimes those things are environmental distractions, like turning off the TV or blocking the internet or closing the door. All of the things that you can do to make sure in those early hours of practice, which are frustrating, you don't get so frustrated that it's easy to stop focusing on whatever it is that you're doing and start paying attention to something else. Likewise, anything that you can do to make sure it takes as little energy as possible to start practicing is super helpful at that point. So, instead of keeping your guitar in the case in the back of the closet on the other side of your house, right? Take the guitar out of the case, get a stand, put it right next to your couch. And that just, anything that you can do to make it easier on yourself to get those early hours of practice, the better.
Yeah, I mean, my guitar is actually hanging out on a rack because of that. It's like almost because I just forget it's even there.
Totally.
It's like the visual cue actually makes a really big difference for me. All right, so number 4 is, now, I'm curious also, I mean, it sounds like there's a bit of crossover between that and sort of like B.J. Fogg's work on really
tiny habits.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's, a lot of the same, this is where the behavioral psychology elements of this come in.
Right.
It's how can you make it easier to do the thing that you want to be doing instead of getting distracted by some shiny object and going and doing something else. So instead of relying on exerting a lot of willpower to force yourself to do this thing that you've decided you want to do, you spend a little bit of willpower, a little bit of time and energy altering the structure of the environment around you.
Right.
And just make it easy as possible to do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, last item, number 5.
Last one. Pre-commit to practicing at least 20 hours. And this is the big one. So all the things that we've talked about so far is getting set up to sit down and do the work of actually practicing. The pre-commitment and the idea of practicing at least 20 hours, there's a lot of behavioral psychology behind that. The 2 big things is, first, it's a really important check on your reasons for learning this thing in the first place.
So it's kind of like, if I'm not willing to commit to 20 hours, I can't be all that serious about it.
Yeah, it's like, is it worthwhile for me to rearrange my schedule and stop doing other things? And, is this something that I'm expecting to get enough benefit from to make the effort worth it?
Yeah.
If it's not, don't do it.
Right.
Life is short, It's like, go do something else that you will get more benefit out of or you are more excited about. So if you're willing to set aside at least 20 hours, what the pre-commitment does is make sure that you practice long enough to push through that early frustration and actually start seeing results. And I think a lot of us really seriously overestimate just how long it takes to become good at something. So you can become really, really good at something, surprisingly good at something, in as little as 20 hours. So if you practice that long, you're going to be way better at the end of that than you were at the beginning.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people also figure, well, 20 hours, I've done that with a million different things, and I really wasn't very good. But probably when they actually look back and say, well, no, like I missed 3 days here, and like that one day where I said I was practicing for an hour, I was really only practicing for 10 minutes. So when you really add up all the time, I'm guessing there's a little bit of self-delusion that happens. There's
actually quite a bit of research behind this. Our minds are not built to accurately estimate time. And in the early parts of learning something new, it's like, it's terrible. It's like, oh man, I've been at this hours. And you look at the clock and you've been at it 10 minutes.
Right.
And so a lot of the, both pre-committing to a certain amount of practicing. So 20 hours roughly is about 40 minutes a day for a month, give or take.
So you can kind of think in your mind 40 minutes a day for a month.
So a couple of, and I usually break my practice sessions into about 20 minutes apiece, right? So 2 20-minute practice sessions every day for about a month can get you there. And so, if you're able and willing to do that, pre-committing the time, make sure that you practice long enough to see that really good result. But it's also, psychologically, it doesn't feel like that big of a hurdle to say, okay, this is important to me.
Right.
I can set aside at least that amount of time, right? So it's just enough that you're going to see dramatic results, but not so much that it prevents you from making the pre-commitment in the first place.
I love that. So let's recap the 5 steps.
Okay. So the 5 steps in order. Step 1, decide what you want. What's your target performance level? Step 2 is deconstruct the skill. Separate it into smaller sub-skills, practice the most important ones first. Number 3 is research the skill just enough to do the deconstruction and choose the most important sub-skills, but not so much that it becomes a barrier to practice in itself. Number 4 is eliminate barriers to practice. Make it easy to do what you want to do. And number 5 is pre-commit to practicing whatever it is that you want to be able to do for at least 20 hours.
Love it. All right. So my mind is spinning because I'm thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to do?
I was going to ask, what's in the back of your mind? What have you always wanted to learn how to do?
It's interesting. I mean, languages, because I don't speak another language. I took Latin for 6 years, which means I speak nothing but English. It's interesting. Like, I want to blow out a whole bunch of different things, but number 5 is making me say, I need to really think about this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to, like, say, okay, people, I'm going to commit to this publicly.
Yeah.
And then, like, an hour after we film this, I'm like, I'm not really, like, willing to put in my 20 hours for that. So it's interesting. I'm really thinking that through. Awesome conversation, and I love sort of like the breakdown that you have. And this is all, I mean, obviously detailed and, a whole bunch more extensively in the first 20 hours. But thanks for stopping by and sharing this with me, because like I said, one of the consistent questions that we keep getting from people is, I know that for me to get to a place where I feel like, like I'm living well in the world, I'm doing these things, career, personal, whatever it is, there's a body of knowledge that I need to know and get decent at. But I don't know how to do it, and I think it's going to take forever. So I think this is a really great formula to help people get there.
Thanks. And, I think the really good news is that the outcome of this research is the barrier to sitting down and learning something new is not intellectual. We're all smart enough to sit down and figure it out and practice in a smart way. The barrier is emotional. And so, a lot of these things are just working with ourselves in a smart way to decide we're interested in doing something, figure out how to do it, and actually sit down and practice so we can do a bunch of cool stuff.
Love it.
That's fun.
Awesome.
All right.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My guest today has been
Malcolm Gladwell is here. He is a staff writer for the New Yorker magazine. His first 2 books, The Tipping Point and Blink, each sold well over 2 million copies in the United States. His unique take on the world ultimately has even spawned its own term, Gladwellian. His new book is called Outliers, The Story of Success. I am very pleased to have him back at this table. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, tell me, I said to you as you sat down, I am fascinated by performance and success in terms of the essence of it. And how do you get there? Not that there's a magic formula, but what can we understand about it?
Yeah. No, it's this sort of perennially interesting question. And there are so many different answers depending on who you ask and when you ask them. And that's why we keep returning to it. If it was some little simple algorithm we could apply, it wouldn't capture our imagination in the same way.
It is said that part of the reason for this book, and there is some personal biography here, you talk about your grandmother, was that you were in search of explaining your own success, this phenomenal success you've had.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a conscious attempt. I would never do something sort of explicitly autobiographically, consciously. But I suppose on some level, I mean, that question began to occur to me because my own success doesn't seem to me to be entirely rational, or it certainly wasn't anything I would have expected.
And you couldn't necessarily look at particular biographical points and say, aha, this guy is going to be either president or write bestsellers.
Yeah, it seemed that I got really lucky. I mean, luck is a huge theme in this book. And it's funny, and we're not very good with luck. We either, we tend to sort of discount it. We'd always rather give a kind of considered explanation for something than just to say it's happenstance. But you know what? A lot of the time it really is. And I try and, in the book I try and sort of zero in on what is exactly the nature of the lucky break that characterizes so much of of truly outstanding success.
Okay, let's take an easy example that you use. Bill Gates.
Yeah, so Bill Gates is lucky in many ways.
Yeah, very bright.
He starts two ways in particular. One is that when he walks into 8th grade at Lakeside Academy in Seattle in 1968, there is a computer terminal sitting there with a link into a mainframe in downtown Seattle. No one had access to a computer terminal in 8th grade or 9th grade or 10th grade or even college in 1968.
Anywhere else in the world.
No, and he himself told me, he's like, if there were 50 people in my position in 1968, I'd be stunned. And he basically spends his entire teenage years programming, right? Because of this gift. And he would tell me one point, Paul Allen, his great high school buddy, with whom he co-founds Microsoft, discovers there's a mainframe down at University of Washington that's free. It's not being used between 2 and 6 in the morning. So he goes to bed at 10 o'clock, sets the alarm clock, climbs out the window, whatever, at 1:30 in the morning, walks 2 miles to the University of Washington, and programs from 2 till 6. Now I love that story because it's the two parts of his success are right there. One is the extraordinary desire and obsessiveness and determination and love of computing. But the other is the fact that he's a guy who lives 2 miles from a mainframe in 1973 that's free between 2 and 6 in the morning, right? Now, lots of people may have the first thing. Almost no one has the second thing, right? I could have walked for a month and not come onto a mainframe.
But this is central to what you were saying here, and so let's explore it in more. The Beatles.
Yeah. Same thing. So Beatles, I'm really interested in one of the other themes I come back to in the book is this notion of how long does it take to be good at something?
Exactly.
And psychologists who have looked at this in the expertise literature have said, you know what, if you look at a whole range of cognitively complex activities, time and time again we see that expertise is reached only after a minimum of 10,000 hours of practice. And that roughly translates to 10 years of doing something. And I do this actually now with anyone who's good at something. And I could do it with you right now. I just ask people, all right, in your career, what was the point that you started to feel comfortable in your role? And it's always 10 years. It's always 10 years. And I'm sure if we did the math with you right now, it would come out to...
No, you're right.
And so this magic number of 10,000 hours, what that says is the first in a cohort to reach 10,000 hours has a huge advantage. So Gates having that computer down the street, or that computer in 8th grade, gives him his 10,000 hours before anyone else who was that age. The Beatles, before they come to America, get invited to go to Hamburg. They're still teenagers, and they become a house band in a strip club, and they play 8-hour sets 7 days a week for months at a time. They get their 10,000 hours in before the British invasion, right? That's why they're good. It's not the only reason, but absent that kind of intensive grad school in rock and roll, they're not the band that we think they are, and they don't make that splash when they come to America.
And I assume that you could look at people who have been great athletes where there's a demand for performance at a young age and discover that they started practicing under very good circumstances very early. Tiger Woods would be Exhibit 1.
Would be Exhibit 1. And the key, what you just said is key. When you said under very good circumstances, this is not just Michael Jordan going out and shooting baskets. The term that expertise researchers use is deliberate practice. That is to say, focused, intensive practice with an eye to zeroing in on your failures and addressing them, your weaknesses. And I'm sure, I would love to have a camera on Michael Jordan as a 16-year-old as he plays basketball and seeing, because I am convinced that that's what sets him apart, that when he practiced in a different way. And that he was constantly thinking about what am I not doing well and why am I not doing it well and what can I do to perfect it.
Because, he didn't make his team as a 14-year-old or something. The junior high team didn't make it and then became a star and got a scholarship to North Carolina.
What's interesting, just to talk about Michael Jordan for a second, unlike a lot of other basketball players, his game changes dramatically over the course of his professional career. And he's not a great outside shooter when he starts and has a, devastating jump shot by the time he retires. So he never stopped this kind of constant process.
You know, he added to his arsenal.
Yeah.
And once he became a pro, even. You know, I mean, there've been lots of examples of that. People that had a certain kind of college career, and then they found out once they got to be a pro that they needed to add to it. But what do we read into this? We read in this access to deliberate practice over 10,000 times.
Yes.
May give you the opportunity for success.
Yes.
The opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. And that's a big thing because, you know, ultimately this book ends up with a series of kind of policy prescriptions because it's supposed to be a way of thinking about this question of how do we help people achieve their potential, right? And there's all kinds of ways to do that. And the very simple answer from the book is you give them opportunities to work harder. And so I end the book, for example, with a chapter about the KIPP academies in this new breed of charter schools, which is really based on this idea. There's nothing fancy about what they do. What they do is extend the school day, extend the school year into the summer, have school start at 7 and go until 6 at night, and have them come in on Saturday. And for kids who want to work harder, they will give you that opportunity. And the insight is that kids who want to work hard can't work hard unless it's a school there to do it.
That's true, too. But, I mean, what separates the kids who want to work hard from those that don't?
I have one of the chapters in the book is about Jewish lawyers.
Yes, exactly. It's wonderful.
And it's all about this group of men who rise from the Bronx and Brooklyn, children of immigrants from Europe, grew up, parents in the garment industry, grew up in the tenements.
Right, in the 1930s.
In the 30s and 40s, and end up at the top of the legal profession in New York. This is what this is hunger, right? So, and one of the central ideas in that chapter is this notion that it was because they were discriminated against as Jews coming out of law school, and as a result forbidden to work at the big downtown law firms, that they went out on their own and took up this unfashionable area of corporate law called takeovers, and practiced it in isolation and obscurity for 20 years, and then
all of a sudden it became a big deal.
Big deal, and they were at the top of the game.
And they were prepared.
But
preparation meets opportunity.
That's slight, though, at the beginning. The big, fancy, waspy law firm telling these kids named, Greenberg or Flom or what have you, that you can't work here.
And we don't care what your grades were at Harvard.
And we don't care what or in their case, NYU.
Yeah, right.
But we don't care. That, that slight is of incalculable importance. I mean, you just said that Jordan doesn't make his team when he was 14. When he was 14, right? Again, that slight is that, I think that is the kind of added psychological
But do you have that gene in you?
Did I have it? I don't think I've ever had a slight, but I'm not.
Not a slight. I mean, I don't think it has to be born of a slight.
No,
I think it can come from, and that's the intriguing question.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just saw Rolling Stone has got a list of the 25 greatest singers. Okay. Mm-hmm. And including John Lennon.
Yeah.
Now, talent had something to do with this.
Yes. Yeah.
So where do we put that?
Obviously it's there. What's fascinating to me is in the psychological literature on expertise, there are a whole group of psychologists for whom I have an infinite amount of respect, who will stand up and with a straight face say that talent doesn't exist, that it's all application and effort. Now, I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, but what that tells me is, look, we think it's this much, and it's not. It's this much. It's some tiny fraction of what we think it is.
I believe that because I'm being fascinated by the subject of talent and performance and what makes people the way they are. I have, in the history of doing this, more than 30 years, this show, 18 years, I have never had somebody say to me, the reason I'm so good at what I do is because I'm smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
It is all because I wanted it more, I worked harder, I focused more, I sacrificed more, and more importantly, I had a deep passion for the thing.
Yeah.
Whether it was swinging a golf ball, hitting a basketball, doing scientific research, being a diplomat.
Yeah.
And they never lose it.
Yeah.
And it is their best friend, their very best friend. Everything else takes, and then you get into work balance and all that stuff. Am I right?
Yeah. No, when I think about the story of the Beatles, what's fascinating about them, of course, is that they went to Hamburg in the 50s and were a house band for a strip club Do we have any idea how miserable that must have been? 8-hour sets. You must really, truly love rock and roll if you're willing to play as a house band in a Hamburgian strip club. I mean, it's like the nastiest situation.
You're willing to take the sacrifices necessary to get there.
Yeah.
So what do we know about Barack Obama? I mean, here's a man who's had phenomenal success. He's at the epitome of power in the world.
Yeah. Well, there's two parts of Barack Obama that fascinate me. You know, the second half of my book is all about culture, but the role that culture plays in success, and how different cultures have very, very different strengths in different. And so I spent a lot of time contrasting Asian and Western cultures, for example, and talking about how Asian kids are better at mathematics for cultural reasons. That there's something about their culture that's beautifully suited to the
well,
test.
this is intriguing. So, I mean, tell us what it has to do with.
Well, I think it has to do. So we make this observation that there's a huge difference in the performance of Asian kids and Western kids on math tests, right? And we know it's not. We've refuted the genetic argument. They're not genetically better at it. And we also know that from a series of psychological tests that they work harder, and that's the key. They're just simply willing to persevere more. The application of effort is greater. So why? And I had this whole chapter, which is I think it has to do with patterns of agricultural practice going back hundreds, if not thousands.
Having to do with rice.
Rice. My father's European peasant ancestors, who were, in the wheat fields of northern England, probably worked 1,000 hours a year and had lots of holidays and were drunk most of the winter and sleeping and worked till noon every day, right? Their Chinese counterparts in that same period were working 3,000 hours a year, weren't drinking off the afternoons, and weren't sleeping through the winter. They were putting in a second crop of rice. Rice cultures are renowned for the fact that rice is infinitely more labor-intensive than traditional Western agriculture. And I think that if a culture engages in that kind of intensive work for 1,500 years, it doesn't go away. And so you take that child who is the product of that kind of culture.
It makes you good at math.
You sit that child down in front of a calculus problem, and they're going to approach it differently. And, some people laugh when I give this theory, but here's the thing. No one has a better theory, right? We don't have any other explanation.
I know.
And the difference between Asian and Western performance is not this much. It's this much. It's enormous, right?
I mean, that's always a very good question and a good argument. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. What's the better idea? And nobody says.
Someone's got to give you a better idea.
Okay.
All right. Today, we've been here for what? A little bit over an hour, 2 minutes over an hour, 62 minutes. All right. Short one today, because I'm doing homework based on the audio, the last two audios you've heard. Today's title is 30 to 180 minutes to hands. What does that mean? I ran across a couple of videos this morning, one new and one that I forgot I saw months ago, but it was right on time. And that's dealing with building tiny houses, the time that it takes. So one video was dealing with, and the guy wrote a book on it too, how to build a tiny house in 3 hours. 3 hours. So that's why I play so much audio today, because I've been getting into that stuff. So 3 hours, and then the video that I saw months ago, but I forgot I saw it, it's titled How to Build they did it in somebody's backyard. And they put it together in 28 minutes. Now, that was, there's a distinction here. The distinction between the word build and the word assembled. All right. So in the case of the 28, the house in the backyard, they had bought a tiny house. Sears used to sell houses in kits. They bought a kit, and then they assembled, and the kit comes with parts. Just like if you go to IKEA or something like that, IKEA, you can buy furniture, a table, a computer desk, whatever, a bed. They come in kits, and then you assemble, you assemble the parts, into a bed or desk or chair, table, whatever you want. You purchase. That's through IKEA. Now, so with the one that was assembled in 28 minutes, a tiny house in somebody's backyard, it was assembled in 28 hours. In other words, it came with a kit. Now, build is you're making the parts. In other words, you're making the walls, because you have to assemble the parts, or get the parts, rather, to make the wall, make the roof, install the bathroom, the closets, that type of stuff. You might use a hammer, nail, saw, screw gun, what have you. But you make the parts of the house, and then you can assemble it. All right. So that's what we'll be doing with our live demonstrations on Tuesday. Well, not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday and Tuesdays from then on out. We'll be doing demonstrations, and there'll be a part 1 and a part 2 demonstration. That's all I'll say for now. Okay. Part 1 demonstration on a Tuesday, and then a part 2 demonstration, which we complete the whole thing on a Saturday morning. So Tuesday evenings, not this coming Tuesday. We'll let you know next week. Tuesday like from 6 to 7 p.m., we'll do a part 1 demonstration of because we have 2 type of models, a 30-minute house and a 180-minute house. 180 minutes is 3 hours. And I'm going with the 180 over 3 hours because simply we'll have the stop clock on that one, on both of them actually. So we'll give you the dates on those. And like I said, I'm studying these 2 things right now, so that's how the Balance of Monday is going to be going on. Listen, before we log off for the day, Robin, any news? If Robin's there. Okay, maybe she's at the other line. Let me close that mic out. Okay, let's see.
Hello?
Yep, now we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Hold on just 1 second. So I do have news.
Okay.
So when we're on the radio show.
Oh, okay.
There is a number that we're going to give to people to call in and join us. Our own direct number, and it's a Florida number, 813-646-9809. So I found out that it will ring, and I'll see it ring, and while we're on the call, while we're on the radio show, I can accept their call and bring them right into the show with us. And when we're not live and manning the phone, there's a voicemail that they can leave their names and numbers on. So that's the number that we'll give out on the radio show, and as well as for them to call back and contact instead of the 425 number. Okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can that be switched to 904 area code?
We might can, but I mean, I would have to go through and put in a request for them to change it. I don't know that I can get a 904. It's a Florida area code.
Right. Now, the reason why, that's Tampa. And the majority of people that will be calling on Monday, like the ones that we got already, every one of them 904.
Yeah, I understand that, but there's no long distance anymore. And I mean, this is our conference line. This is the number that's already out there for our network. And so I would, just for this one faction, I would have to go through some gyrations and change it across my whole platform. You understand?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, it's a 813. It's a Florida number. There's no long distance charges anymore. You understand? And so
I understand that part. Yeah.
It should suffice.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, we'll run it through.
Yeah, and also that station is not going to be the only market that we're in. You understand? And so we're not
I
going to
understand that part.
We're not going to be going and getting a phone number in every area code that we're dealing in. That's not costly, feasible.
All right. But for now, the only boots on the ground market is Jacksonville.
I understand that. And the only boots on the ground network that we develop will not only be in Jacksonville. It will be in other places.
True.
So we're not going to get a phone number for every location that we're not. No, we're not going to do that. Does that make sense to you? It's centralized.
Yeah, we're keeping it simple. Yeah, we're keeping it simple.
Yes, sir.
Keeping it simple.
On our already, we're going to use what we have. I've already brought this to the table that suffices all of our needs. People can call the number and I can bring them right into the show. And when we're not live and not answering the phone, there's the voicemail. I mean, that's better than the number that they're giving in. Because they're not going to take, if I guarantee you, anyone that calls the radio station number after we're not on the air, and they ask any questions and try to leave their phone numbers for us, they're not relaying that information.
No, more than likely not.
They're going to say, oh, sorry, when are they on? You have to call back and can contact them then. That's when. So, okay, so this number, it has a voicemail. We have the ability to bring them in live. And I've tested it out. If someone called the number right now, 813-646-9809, I would answer it and bring them right into this show. So we can it's portable. We can take this wherever we go. Does that make sense
to you? So they can call that. They call that direct.
Yes.
You get you hear the ring, and then you can patch it directly into the.
Yep, I'll answer.
Whatever we're doing.
Them directly into the call. And then when we're not on a live call, they get a voicemail and they can leave a message. Which and the custom greeting says abiding faith or says welcome to thank you for calling I Am Streaming Network and Abiding Faith Housing Ministry. Please leave your message, name and number. Okay?
All right,
I got you.
Got it. All right.
And
all
it
right,
only took 5 minutes to set all that up.
Good. All right, and we're on YouTube Live as well. So on that note, I'm going to, because I'm doing homework here based on these videos. On that note, that's it for me for today. On that note, everyone have it's Friday already, man. This week went by quick.
Yeah,
everyone
it's Friday. And the 9th month this year is going like fast. So everybody be safe. Have a great weekend. Study to show myself.